in that compassionate level of understanding in how we describe and explain the geographies around these areas and why they must be preserved as a memory for today. So there are 1,121 World Heritage sites across the world. And here's another site. This is Auschwitz. And I put that on again to just remind you that the World Heritage List is really, I think it's a phenomenal resource for geographers because you really can examine some of the most outstanding stories of heritage across the world, and you can draw them out and bring them into your lesson planning, just your general awareness of global geography. I just think it's a brilliant list as a resource. There are 83 geological sites on the World Heritage List, which excites me. And they range from volcanoes and glaciers all the way through to karst landscapes and mountain ranges. And on the right-hand side, the right bottom, we can see the Giant's Causeway, which is the other natural World Heritage Site within the United Kingdom. So here we come to the Jurassic Coast World Heritage Site. Why is it on the list? What's its outstanding universal value? I'm going to show you some of the most beautiful photography that's been taken by James Loveridge, and I do thank him for allowing me to use these images because he's able to capture the Jurassic Coast in all of its beauty. And of course, every geographer knows what this feature is. Of course, it's Lulworth Cove. The Jurassic Coast went into the World Heritage List in 2001, and so 2021 marks 20 years of this extraordinary place as a World Heritage Site. So when we talk about what is it at the Jurassic Coast? It falls into three categories. It's on the World Heritage List because of the rocks, because of the fossils, but also because of the landforms. All three aspects of the site are globally important and must be protected for future generations. When we look at the site itself, and I'm going to really dig deep down into the geology now, the Jurassic Coast stretches across the Mesozoic period, and this lasted for about 185 million years in terms of geological time. This was a Mesozoic period. So in the western end of the site, we have the Triassic rocks. In the middle of the site, we have the Jurassic rocks. And then towards the east of the site, this is towards Studland, we have the Cretaceous rocks. And as you walk from the west to the east, the rocks actually get younger geologically. And what's really strange is if you're a geologist or you know a little bit about how rock layers are formed, you'll know that rock layers are formed in horizontal layers. So why is it on the Jurassic Coast we have this very strange sequence of rocks that are not only tilted, but they're tilted in such a way that you can see a complete sequence of time displayed in the cliffs themselves. Now, to help you out a little bit, I've got a video that I need to show you, and that will make it a little bit easier for you to understand why the rocks have become tilted. In order to do that, I'm going to stop my mic for a few minutes and let you watch this video. So just hang on a sec whilst I fiddle around with the audio settings. As you move from the west of the coast towards the east, 95 miles of coastline, the rocks actually get younger. It's all to do with tilting. The rocks, we can really demonstrate here, were tilted towards the east. So let's do that with our model. Tilt it over like that. The uplifted rocks on the Jurassic Coast is subject to erosion. Here's our agent of erosion. Here you go, hold it. Now what I'd like you to do is slice off the top layer of these rocks. So what's happened is that almost we've created an erosional surface on the Jurassic Coast, like that. And more rocks are deposited on top. These would be later Cretaceous rocks. And now hopefully what you can see, you hold it for you so I can point out, you can see a brilliant model of the Jurassic Coast. We've got our track. Rocks there, sticking towards the east, like Jurassic rocks in the middle, the blue ones, and the Cretaceous rock here, and on top we get more Cretaceous rocks deposited, and that is how the glaciers formed. Right, I'm back again. Sorry about that break. I was trying to be too clever and mess about with my audio. So that's a really good kind of quick activity to show you how those rocks on the Jurassic coast were tilted and formed. Let's just move on there. Right, so let's go back to the beginning of that story. So the oldest rocks on the Jurassic coast were forming during the Triassic period, and that was around about 250 million years ago. This is what the world used to look like then. And if you look carefully, you can see, I don't know if you can see my arrow, but the United Kingdom is just here in the rain shadow of these mountains that are stretching across the continent of Pangaea. So that's really important, because if your piece of land is in the rain shadow, you know that rainfall is quite limited, it's quite a dry, arid environment. And this is very much reflected in the kind of the colour and the story of the rocks that you see. There's a beautiful picture from Sydney King 7 where you can see Triassic sandstones. And what's really interesting about these rocks is that they are oxidised, so they have a rich red colour, so a lot of iron oxide there, which is very reflective of a desert environment. And when we think about what the world looked like during the Triassic period 250 million years ago, you're thinking of an environment very much like Namibia today. So the key thing about interpreting rocks in geological environments is to almost use that classic kind of geological thinking of the present is the key to the past. Because what we're doing is we're looking at the rocks, we're looking at clues that are telling us about how those rocks are formed, and quite often those clues are in contemporary landscapes. So kind of like me being an earth scientist, I blend those two aspects of skills and thinking together. So back in the Triassic, E7, the rocks at E7 were very much forming these environments. And the life forms at that time were incredibly primitive. This is the start of the evolution of the reptiles, and you see these very, very strange creatures called wingfosaurs that would have kind of been wandering around this dry, sandy landscape. How do we know that? Because we have these really rare and beautiful fossils that have been found in the Sidmouth area. And I mean, you can just look at the teeth, can't you? What is really outstanding with these particular fossils is the preservation. And I think if you've watched any kind of David Attenborough documentary, and you watch that, I think the one I remember is a dung beetle kind of rolling a ball up the side of a sand dune. You can see how harsh an environment it is in terms of weathering. So to get fossils preserved in such a stark and arid environment like that is incredibly rare. Triassic fossils are extremely rare. So where we have these examples, paleontologists can begin to pick apart the story of what life was like during the Triassic. Let's skip ahead a bit in our story. Let's go to the early Jurassic now. So what's happening to Pangaea is it's starting to break up. Sea levels are beginning to rise. And so if you can see my arrow, the United Kingdom is now deep underwater because sea levels have risen, Pangaea has broken up. But what I think is really interesting here is you can see that North America and areas of China where we see phenomenal fossils of land-based reptiles, they are, they've got great fossils. They've got great fossils of dinosaurs, which excites everybody naturally. But for me, the greater story, the more enigmatic story, is the story of the marine reptiles. And this is the record of fossils that we see at the Jurassic Coast and certainly up in Yorkshire as well. What was it? Sorry, if I missed the slide then. What was it like back then? This is what it was like. You had these deep, vast seas. What's really interesting in the Jurassic is that sea levels were rising and falling, quite cyclically over the Jurassic period. And so you had changes in water chemistry, you had changes in ocean temperatures, and this affected life within those oceans. But what was really critical was that there was the evolution of marine reptiles throughout this period, and they would go on to dominate the Jurassic seas right up until the Cretaceous period. What you can see in this picture here is you can see a plesiosaur, you can see a couple of ichthyosaurs, and you can see these dimorphodons kind of swooping over the water. And what's remarkable is that the fossils of all of these creatures the cliffs at Dorset. This is the kind of environment we're talking about. And of course, if you've been to Charmouth, you know that it's such a rich and important place for fossil collecting. See those towering grey cliffs there. And these are the kind of creatures you see. You see these ammonites, and I've actually probably got one. I can probably pick one up and just show you in front of the camera there. That's what it looks like today, and that's what it would have looked like about 200 million years ago. I mean, if you know where to look and you know what time of year to go, you can find these extraordinary fossils. And I'm just going to play this little video here because this is me just walking along the beach, and they are literally all over the rocks. And I think this is the magical experience of visiting the Jurassic Coast, is that the fossils are all around you. And sometimes the only tools you really need are your eyes. So these amazing Jurassic marine creatures, you've got belemnites, and actually I've got a selection of fossils here. So where you can see the belemnite, this is the fossil you're looking for. It's a kind of bullet-shaped body there, that's what's been preserved. And the other one that I've got, which is really lovely, is I have the small jawbone fragment of an ichthyosaur there. So that ichthyosaur is a marine reptile with really sharp teeth. It's got a very kind of long pointed jaw. And I think someone who's watching in the audience is Dr. Dean Lomax, who's one of the world's expert in ichthyosaurs. So you should catch up with him on social media and learn more about ichthyosaurs. But it's not as good as his fossils, but this is probably my prized possession of a little fragment of a jaw of ichthyosaur there that I found on Lyme Regis Beach. But these creatures were extraordinary. When we think about the pliosaur, I mean, these creatures are huge. The jaw of the pliosaur, and if you go to the Dorset Museum, there is a beautiful jaw there that measures about 2 meters in length. I mean, these creatures were huge, massive predators. And look at the beautiful fossils here. I mean, obviously, I've shown you a couple off my desk, but really, they are stunning. And what makes the fossils on the Jurassic Coast so incredibly important for science is the preservation. You can see this beautiful ichthyosaur there with the bones in its paddle, those belemnite and this pliosaur tooth. Look at that, look at the ridges on that tooth. Let's skip ahead a bit now to the Cretaceous as we're coming out of this Jurassic period. What's happening now is that sea levels are beginning to fall during the Cretaceous period. The land surface that would have been the United Kingdom is rising up out of the water. And what this gives rise to is really quite a beautiful landscape that any of us would probably want to just hop onto that beach right now. You know, this white sandy beach, tropical weather, warm, shallow turquoise sea. I mean, this really was a stunning place. And this is what Dorset would have been like, 140 million years ago. Would you have wanted to be there? I'm not sure, actually. We'll talk about why that is in a minute. But here's a beautiful picture of Wheelbarrow Bay in Dorset. Now, this is a fantastic place to go because actually you can see the entire sequence of the Cretaceous rocks all in one place, which is Wheelbarrow Bay. So this is really a great place to go to get a sense of the rocks that formed during the Cretaceous period. What you're looking at is some really beautiful sequences of chalk there. And some wind sounds. But would you have wanted to be there? I mean, you can see my daughter there, mini Jurassic girl, and she's jumping over dinosaur footprints. And these were formed by sauropods about 140, 130 million years ago. Dinosaurs were literally walking across Dorset. And we don't actually find that many dinosaur bones in Dorset. What we tend to see are lots and lots of footprints. So a lot of paleontologists think actually that Dorset was a super highway for dinosaurs on their way to the Isle of Wight, where there might have been a bit of a breeding ground or perhaps a watering hole. So if you want to see dinosaur bones, you've really got to go somewhere like the Isle of Wight. But certainly we have beautiful examples of dinosaur footprints in Dorset nearby the Jurassic Coast. Would you have wanted to go on holiday to the Cretaceous period? The kind of the tropical landscape of Dorset 140 million years ago? I don't think so. And this is probably why. You'd have probably come face to face right with a megalosaurus